This year was a really good year of Pokémon GO Fest. Niantic did a lot of really good things with this event, and I felt like there were a lot of positive lessons that Niantic took into account from last year. And yes, there was a lot of things that I felt like Niantic could have done a lot better, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about all the good things that happened at Pokémon GO Fest. First and foremost, the event format was stellar. This is something that Niantic adopted last year at Pokémon GO Fest, and I felt like them carrying it over to this year was a really good move, because having half of the event in the park and then the second half being a city exploration style event, I thought that was perfect, because when it comes to New York City, there's just so much things you could do within the city itself. And for players to have half of their experience be at a specific location where they could set up habitats and different activities, that's really cool. But also to give players the opportunity to go out and play Pokemon Go within New York City. Yeah, that was a very positive experience. I felt like it was something that I wish they did with every single in-person event, because when it comes to the Go Tour event, for example, it just feels like you're stuck in one place and you want to go out and explore. They did this somewhat this year with the Go Tour event in Los Angeles, but last year when they did it in Las Vegas, all we had was the park event, and outside of that, there was nothing involving going out to Las Vegas itself. And I felt like they could have done that a lot better. But this year, of course, they did something that really worked with Go Fest last year, and I'm really glad that they did that, and hoping that moving forward, they continue this format, because I definitely love it. And another thing that I thought was a huge positive with this year's Go Fest was, of course, the raiding content. I think when it comes to Go Fest, one of the big highlights has always been the raiding, because there's going to be a lot of people within that area. Whether you're in the city or whether you're in Randall's Island Park, there's just a lot of people who are active and out and about trying to get 100% of legendaries and special Pokemon that you could only get from raids. And this year, the raiding content was stellar. Having a bunch of Ultra Beasts with their shiny forms available, along with Necrozma, it just created this vibe that everyone was excited about doing a whole bunch of raids. And because of that, people were active, people were excited, people were having big wins. They were getting 100% IVs of Necrozma, or they were getting some shinies that they've always wanted. It's always a really good time if there's really good raiding content, and that was something that was definitely a plus with this year's Go Fest. It was also a plus last year because they had Xerneas as well as Mega Rayquaza, but I felt like this year it was a huge plus because it was just all 5-star raids. And that's how it should be, in my opinion. And then finally, from a technical standpoint, I had absolutely no issues. Regardless if I was at Randall's Island Park or at New York City, not at one point did I ever feel like my game was not working. And that means Niantic was very well prepared. From a technical standpoint, they at least had a bunch of cell towers at Randall's Island Park, so at no point were you lagging or coming across any technical issues. That's something that typically plagues these in-person events because there's such a huge influx of players within a given area. And because of that, it's going to be really difficult to get good cell service. So Niantic was very much prepared. It felt like, at least for myself, I had no technical issues, and that was a huge plus with this year's Go Fest. And then of course, this has always been something that Niantic has been really good at, but the decorations and the activities, they were all really good this year. I thought they did a really good job with everything with the decorations for Randall's Island Park, and it really did feel like you were at a special event for Pokemon Go. And give credit where credit is due, they do know how to throw these in-person events and make them feel very special. So yeah, if you compound all of these positives, I think Pokemon Go Fest was a huge success this year. I thought Niantic did a really good job, and for anyone who paid money to go to this event, they definitely got their money's worth, because Pokemon Go Fest has always been something that did require a lot of effort from Niantic's part, and they definitely showed it this time around. So now let's get into some of the negatives, because yes, it was not a perfect event, and there was definitely a lot of things that Niantic could have done a lot better. And I really do hope that for future in-person events like Go Tour and Go Fest, they do take these lessons to heart, because when it comes to Pokemon Go Fest, people are going to be spending a lot of money to travel to these different locations so that they could participate. And if they're paying a lot of that money, they should get the absolute best experience. And I really do think that when it comes to Pokemon Go Fest, there are a couple of things that Niantic could do to make sure players have that really good experience. And these are some of the things that I noticed. So first and foremost, I totally recognize that this is going to be outside of Niantic's control. But yeah, there was a sweltering heat wave at New York City during this weekend. And that means a lot of players were getting very dehydrated, people were in need of shade, and that was something that Niantic did not provide for a majority of players. At least for myself, I had the Saturday park experience, and during that park experience, there was only 2 water stations at the entirety of Randall's Island Park. And one of those water stations actually did not work, so people were not able to get water from that one water station. That means there was only one functioning water station, and because of that, the lines to get water from that station were incredibly long throughout the entire day. If at any point you needed a refill of your water bottles, you had to wait at least 20 to 30 minutes in the heat in order to get that water, and I think that's something that is not acceptable. And I felt like that was a huge misstep because when it comes to Pokemon Go Fest, a lot of people are going to be out and about walking, they're going to be in the heat because these events typically happen in the middle of the summer. So they need to be prepared. They need to make sure that people are getting their water. That is something that is also a safety hazard. So I do think that for future in-person events, they need to make sure that they over-prepare by having multiple watering stations and making sure that they are all working. Running back and forth between different habitats, if you're trying to get some raids done, you want to run to those gyms, and you're doing it all in the open heat, the open sun. And because of that, people were getting sunburnt, they were getting tired out really quickly, and then just overall, people were just exhausted throughout the entire park experience. And I think a lot of that could have been mitigated if Niantic had more rest areas outside of just the team tents. Regardless of what day you were at Randall's Island Park, you could definitely see it. People were congregating under trees. People were congregating under different areas where they could get just a little bit of shade. And I felt like Niantic could have had their own tents set up throughout the park for people to sit down under. They could have had these tents right under where there's a lot of clusters of gyms, so people could just sit and do a whole bunch of raids if they choose to do so. This is something that Niantic should have thought about. It was not a comfortable experience. I was sweating pretty much the entire event, and I also felt like there were many moments where I just wanted to sit down and rest for about 5 minutes, and I just could not do so because there was nowhere to sit. And yeah, I'm not the kind of person that will just sit on the grass. I feel like because I own a dog and I know that the grass is basically every single dog's bathroom, I just did not feel comfortable just sitting down in the grass. So I really wish Niantic had some benches, they had some tables set up, maybe they could have had some tents with some picnic tables. I really do not know, but because Randall's Island Park is one of those venues that does not have a lot of pavilions, they really need to make sure that they set up their own places for players to rest, and that was definitely lacking this year. And then finally, just from a gameplay point of view, I felt like a lot of players were very frustrated at some of the spawn rates as well as the shiny rates, especially during the city exploration experience. I do think that Niantic could have been a little bit less stingy when it comes to getting shinies. I myself only got 9 shinies throughout the entire event, 3 of those being from raids. So I'm not necessarily complaining because when it comes to shinies, there's not any particular shiny that I'm always looking for. But I do feel like for a lot of players, they felt a little bit disappointed. And I understand that when it comes to the in-person events, they're not going to have it at the shiny rate of, let's say, a community day. But at least for people who are spending money to attend these events, they should get a lot more than they typically would. And I do think that for them, they should have gotten a little bit more when it comes to shinies and some rare Pokemon that typically they do not see. And I think that's just all it comes down to. Niantic should just be less stingy. So yeah, there's definitely some learning experiences from this year's Go Fest, and I do think that Niantic has it fully in them to make a perfect experience when it comes to these events. So hopefully next year they'll take these lessons into account, because I do think that when it comes to Go Fest this year, it was a really positive experience, and all Niantic had to do was some of these little tweaks. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to share my thoughts, and these are pretty much all of my thoughts. So yeah, had a really good time, don't get me wrong. I know that I tend to be very negative, but I have to chalk this up as a win for Niantic. It was a really good event. I did feel like I got my money's worth. I did feel like there was definitely a lot of value, and the experience was done really well. There was a lot of polish, there was a lot of thought put into this event, and yeah, give credit where credit is due. Niantic did a really good job with this year's Go Fest. We do have the global event coming up this coming weekend, and I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm also being very cautiously optimistic because when it comes to the global events, they typically do not go over as well as the in-person events, and players tend to complain quite a lot. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I really do hope it ends up being a success, but it's really going to depend on how less stingy Niantic ends up being. But Yeah. In any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding everything that I talked about down below. Did you attend Pokemon Go Fest in New York City? What were your thoughts regarding that experience? Definitely share what it is, and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And also don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And real quick, let me give a shout out to all my patrons on Patreon. You all make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel and join all of the players that you see on the bottom of your screen, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon page, because if you become a paid Patreon member, you get a permanent spot on my in-game Pokemon Go friends list. That means when it comes to remote raids and the friendship system, if you want to play Pokemon Go with me, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. And if you want to support my channel in a different way, you could always do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula. I'm on the platforms that you see on screen. Make sure you go over there and give me a follow. That's going to be it for this video. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.